Marcus. I'll be seeing you.
Released in 1978, Battlestar Galactica was not just a television series, but a cultural phenomenon marking a major turning point in the history of science fiction on the small screen. With breathtaking space battles, the gleaming army of Cylon robots, and a massive budget, the show quickly captured the attention of audiences worldwide. Although it lasted only one season with 24 episodes.
Why are you launching Vipers?
Please arrange for Chief Tyrrell
and Lieutenant Agathon to be handed over to
my Marines as soon as they arrive.
Battlestar Galactica created an irresistibly captivating universe, becoming a symbol of science fiction during that era. Beyond its impressive storyline and grand scale, Battlestar Galactica also held fascinating and at times bizarre behind-the-scenes stories that few people knew about. From dramatic legal battles with Star Wars, hidden religious themes in the plot, to recycled props and unexpected production decisions. The series was a treasure trove of intriguing facts that never failed to pique the curiosity of its fans. Let's uncover 20 weird and fascinating facts about the classic series Battlestar Galactica, where the behind-the-scenes stories are sometimes even more thrilling than what happens on screen. 1. The pilot episode, interrupted by history.
It's an ambush, and they've got enough firepower to destroy the entire fleet.
On September 17th, 1978, millions of Americans turned on their TVs to watch the pilot episode of Battlestar Galactica Saga of a Star World. Everyone was eagerly anticipating an epic opening, complete with thrilling space battles and a promising sci-fi storyline. But suddenly the screen switched to President Jimmy Carter. And no, he wasn't a fan of Battlestar Galactica. This was when he announced the Camp David Peace Accords, a truly historic event. Audiences immediately erupted in frustration. They had waited weeks to see this pilot episode only for it to be interrupted by a political speech. ABC later had to re-air the episode to appease viewers. But the strange thing is this event inadvertently made Battlestar Galactica a part of television history. After all, not many shows have had the honor of being interrupted by a moment that changed the world, right? 2. Almost sued by Star Wars.
Attention, attention. His Eminence, the Imperious Leader, will be with us shortly. His ship has landed at the Air Dome.
If you think Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars were just two separate space-themed productions, you're missing the intense legal battle between the two franchises. Shortly after Battlestar Galactica premiered, Lucasfilm, the creator of Star Wars, filed a lawsuit against Universal Studios accusing it of blatantly copying almost every idea from Star Wars. From the space battles' special effects to the design of the Cylon robots, everything was claimed to be lifted from Star Wars. Interestingly, several members of the Star Wars effects team had moved on to work on Battlestar Galactica. Coincidence or intention? No one knows, but Lucasfilm presented a long list of evidence, even accusing Battlestar Galactica of using motion control technology identical to that of Star Wars. The result of this battle? A stalemate. Lucasfilm didn't win the case, but Universal Studios didn't walk away unscathed either. 3. The deadly toy incident. Every child in the late 70s wanted to own the Colonial Viper spaceship, the symbol of the fighter fleet in Battlestar Galactica. But few could have imagined that this toy would ignite one of the largest disasters in the toy industry. Designed as a tiny spaceship, the Colonial Viper had the ability to shoot small plastic missiles. The idea sounded exciting, but it turned into tragedy when a child accidentally swallowed a missile and died. Another incident soon followed, leaving another child narrowly escaping death. This incident not only stirred public outrage, but also forced Mattel to recall the entire toy line. However, the story didn't end there. It sparked a global revolution in toy safety standards. new regulations were introduced completely banning toys with parts small enough to pose a choking hazard. And so the Colonial Viper, a seemingly harmless toy, became a symbol of change in the toy industry. 4. Battlestar Galactica wasn't meant to be a weekly series. Believe it or not, Battlestar Galactica was never intended to become a weekly television series. Glen A. Larson, the creator of the show, envisioned it as a series of long television films with each episode resembling a cinematic masterpiece. The pilot episode, Saga of a Star World, was even released as a theatrical film in Canada and Europe, with plans to follow up with additional installments. But ABC saw a golden opportunity when the pilot episode achieved record-breaking ratings. They demanded Larson turn Battlestar Galactica into a weekly series. And thus, the grand cinematic dream of Battlestar Galactica was forced to shrink to fit a TV schedule. This created immense production pressure. Episodes had to be written and filmed at breakneck speed, resulting in inconsistent quality, reduced special effects, and at times content that felt rushed. 5. The strange timekeeping system. If you've ever watched Battlestar Galactica, you've probably noticed something odd. No one in the series uses hours, minutes, or seconds like we do. Instead, they invented an entirely new timekeeping system. A year was called a yarn, a minute was a centon, and a second was a micron. Sounds strange. That was exactly the point. Glen A. Larson wanted to create the feeling that the Battlestar Galactica universe was entirely alien to Earth. These terms helped separate the world of the show from reality, making viewers feel like they were stepping into a completely different universe. But let's be honest, hearing characters shout things like, "We only have 10 centons to escape," sometimes left audiences scratching their heads. How long is a centon? Long enough for a snack break. 6. Hidden Mormon religious ideas. Beneath the sci-fi spectacle, Battlestar Galactica was actually a spiritual journey heavily inspired by the Mormon faith of its creator, Glen A. Larson. Think it's just about humans versus Cylons. Look closer, the story of the 13th tribe leaving the planet Kobol to search for Earth, a promised land, is essentially a space-age version of the story of the lost tribes in Mormon teachings. The planet Kobol humanity's origin point wasn't a random name either. In Mormon theology, Kolob is the star closest to God's throne, representing divinity and the source of life. Even the Council of 12 in Battlestar Galactica, humanity's leaders, mirrors the leadership structure of the Mormon Church. These ideas weren't explicitly stated, but were woven subtly into the plot, turning the series into more than just a space adventure. It became a philosophical and spiritual journey. 7. One actor played 2 roles. Patrick McNe, a name any Battlestar Galactica fan should know, pulled off the unbelievable by playing 2 roles in the series. He was the menacing voice of Imperious Leader, the ruler of the Sylons, and also appeared on screen as Count Iblis, a mysterious and malevolent character. What's even stranger is that the 2 roles had an unspoken connection that the series never fully explained. Imperious Leader, with his cold, commanding voice, embodied mechanical evil, a soulless machine of destruction. Count Iblis, on the other hand, represented a more subtle form of evil, charming, manipulative, and deeply sinister. The eerie similarities between the 2 characters led many fans to theorize, was Count Iblis a physical manifestation of Imperious Leader? Or was it just a coincidence? 8. Costumes recycled from other films. Take a close look at the flight crew uniforms in Battlestar Galactica. They may look futuristic and fitting for a space saga, but in reality, most of the costumes were reused from other sci-fi films. Yes, to save on costs, the production team borrowed wardrobes from movies like Logan's Run and Silent Running. The flight suits' civilian clothes on the ships and even some of the Cylons' outfits were slightly modified with a few futuristic straps and patches added to make them seem new. You'd think audiences would notice immediately, but instead, these recycled costumes added to the series' charm. They gave Battlestar Galactica a distinct aesthetic, futuristic but still grounded in the style of the late 70s. 9. Sky-high production costs. Think Game of Thrones or Stranger Things are expensive to produce? Think again. Back in 1978, Battlestar Galactica was one of the costliest TV shows ever made. The pilot episode, Saga of a Star World, alone cost over $8 million, an astronomical figure for television at the time. For comparison, an average TV episode in the 70s cost around $200,000, but a single episode of Battlestar Galactica, it cost more than $1 million each. Why was it so expensive? The answer lies in its epic space battles, cutting-edge special effects, massive ship models, and a giant production crew. Larson wanted Battlestar Galactica to look like a cinematic blockbuster airing weekly, and he succeeded. But at what cost? ABC simply couldn't sustain such massive expenses, and the series was forced to end after just one season. 10. Muffet 2 was a real dog. Muffet 2. The lovable robotic dog in Battlestar Galactica wasn't a robot at all. Beneath the shiny metal exterior was a real dog named Evie. Yes, the production team trained Evie to move inside a bulky robot costume, bringing Muffet 2 to life with natural movements that no special effects of the time could replicate. Imagine a small dog acting on a noisy, brightly lit set while wearing a heavy, hot costume. The production team went to great lengths to ensure Evie was as comfortable as possible, designing the costume to be lightweight and spending hours training her to perform on cue. 11. Actors read lines from cue cards. Imagine a massive sci-fi production like Battlestar Galactica, with breathtaking space battles and dialogue that sounded like it was written by actual scientists. But the truth is, many times the actors couldn't even remember their lines, because they were reading straight from cue cards scattered across the set. With the rushed production schedule, scripts were often written right before filming. To save time, the team came up with a creative solution. They hid cue cards all over the set, from the backs of control panels inside props, and even on the set walls. The actors simply had to glance at them and read. A kind of cheat sheet right in front of the audience. If you pay close attention, you might notice some wandering eyes or odd pauses as they tried to find the next line. But don't blame them. Delivering complex terms like yarn or micron while pretending not to look at a cheat sheet was a superhuman challenge. Sometimes the magic of Battlestar Galactica wasn't just in the content, but in how they hacked their way to completing the show. 12. Cylons were originally aliens. Don't be fooled by the shiny metal armor and scanning red eyes of the Cylons. In the earliest concepts, they weren't robots at all. That's right. The Cylons were originally envisioned as a race of living aliens wearing metallic battle armor. In fact, in the theatrical version of the pilot episode Saga of a Star World, there's a brief moment showing the face of an alien underneath a Cylon helmet. So why the change? The answer lies with the censors. They were concerned that depicting living beings being killed on screen would be too violent for younger audiences. The solution? Turn the Cylons into emotionless robots to avoid controversy. And so, from a complicated alien race, the Cylons became a cold, unfeeling machine empire, and arguably even scarier. A small change, but one that defined the entire Battlestar Galactica universe. Baltar was supposed to die in the first episode. Baltar, the main antagonist and symbol of betrayal in Battlestar Galactica, was never meant to survive beyond the first episode. In the theatrical version of the pilot episode, this traitor was executed immediately after helping the Cylons annihilate mankind. Yes, his head was removed right on screen. A swift, brutal, and entirely logical conclusion. But when ABC decided to turn the show into a weekly series, they realized they needed a long-term villain to keep the audience engaged. So Baltar was resurrected. Instead of being killed, he was spared by the Cylons and became their loyal servant, constantly causing trouble for Galactica. This change turned Baltar into a classic villain, but also left fans wondering if Baltar had died in the beginning. How would the story have unfolded? A small adjustment and history was rewritten. 14. Military vehicles repurposed for sci-fi. Battlestar Galactica is famous for its space battles. But have you noticed the futuristic vehicles the crew used on different planets? The Landrum and Snowram, vehicles that looked modern and equipped with sci-fi technology, were actually real-life military vehicles that had been modified. Yes, they were heavy-duty vehicles like armoured snowmobiles repainted and fitted with a few sci-fi details to match the show's aesthetic. This repurposing not only helped cut production costs, but also gave the series a unique style, a blend of modern technology with the rugged look of the 70s. While they weren't as flashy as the flying vehicles in Star Wars, these vehicles still became memorable symbols of Battlestar Galactica. One thing is certain, if you saw one of these vehicles in real life, you'd never guess they were once driven by the crew of Galactica. 15. The Battlestars you never saw. While the Galactica takes centre stage in the story, the series universe also mentions other massive battleships like Columbia Pacifica, Triton, and even Prometheus. These were part of humanity's defense fleet before being wiped out in the Cylons' surprise attack. But the strange thing is, all of these ships are only mentioned in dialogue. There are no images, no models, no signs of their existence, just fleeting mentions of their names. The reason: budget constraints. Creating models or special effects for each ship would have been far too expensive, so the production team kept them shrouded in mystery. Ironically, this added to their allure. These names sparked the imagination of fans and later became the foundation for novels, comics, and expanded stories. A vast but mysterious universe. That's what makes Battlestar Galactica even more captivating. 16. Battlestar Galactica handheld game. Into the late 70s, Battlestar Galactica wasn't just a TV phenomenon, it also invaded the world of toys. One of the standout products was a handheld electronic game released by Mattel. The Screen. Just a small black box with a few blinking red LED lights. But for kids back then, it was like holding an entire space battle in their hands. The game put you in the role of a Viper pilot battling Cylon ships which were actually just wandering red dots. The sound. An endless stream of loud, high-pitched beeps whenever you shot or got hit. The storyline, none. But none of that mattered. Kids went crazy for it, and the game quickly became one of the best-selling products, keeping the Battlestar Galactica craze alive even after the series ended. Today, if you find a working unit, it's not just a classic toy, but also a piece of history. It's a reminder of an era when just a few LED lights could make children feel like they were flying through space. Simple yet magical. 17. The Cylon hierarchy. The Cylons weren't just mindless robots with scanning red eyes. Their empire actually had a complex military hierarchy far more intricate than you'd expect. At the bottom were the Centurions, basic robot soldiers with cold metallic voices and tireless laser shooting abilities. Slightly higher up were the Command Centurions, distinguished by their shiny gold armor, responsible for issuing orders and controlling combat. But the real intrigue lay with the higher-ups. The IIL series Sylons, like Lucifer, had bizarre designs, glowing heads, transparent brains, and voices dripping with arrogance. Above that was the imperious leader, the supreme ruler always hidden in the shadows with a voice that radiated authority and power. This hierarchy made the Cylons more than just a group of machines. They were a fully fledged empire with clear layers of power. Ironically, despite being so organized, the Cylons still couldn't defeat humanity. Perhaps designing an AI-powered robot army wasn't as brilliant an idea as you'd think. 18. Battlestar Galactica sparked a massive franchise. Even though it lasted only one season, with 24 episodes, Battlestar Galactica achieved what many long-running series never could. It created a lasting franchise. After the show ended, Universal Pictures wasn't ready to let the brand fade into obscurity. They quickly developed Galactica 1980, a sequel series that, to be honest, no one wants to remember. But that was just the beginning. Over the years, Battlestar Galactica continued to thrive through novels, comics, video games, and even theme park attractions. Then, in the 2000s, the franchise exploded back into popularity with a darker, deeper, and more modern reboot. From a single-season show, Battlestar Galactica became a cultural icon, a story of survival politics and morality cherished by generations. Not every show can claim to have launched a universe that spans decades. Battlestar Galactica did, and it all started with a single season in 1978. 19. Inspired by the Bible. The journey of Battlestar Galactica wasn't just a battle between humanity and the Cylons. Beneath the sci-fi surface lay stories directly inspired by the Bible. The journey of the survivors aboard the Galactica searching for a promised land called Earth. It's clearly a space version of the story of Moses leading the Israelites through the desert to the promised land. Even small details carried religious significance: the Council of the 12, the prophecies, and the planet Kobol, believed to be the origin of humanity. These were no coincidences. Glen A. Larson, the creator of the series, skillfully incorporated elements of mythology and religion into Battlestar Galactica, making it not just a sci-fi series, but a philosophical work with profound meaning. This blend of themes helped Battlestar Galactica transcend the boundaries of entertainment, becoming a story that posed big questions about life, faith, and destiny. 20. A beacon for future sci-fi series. Battlestar Galactica wasn't just a phenomenon in itself. It also became the inspiration for many modern sci-fi series. From Firefly, with its story of a group of survivors on a ship to The Expanse with its political struggles in space, the influence of Battlestar Galactica can be seen everywhere. Even elements like the mix of high technology and humanistic themes, a hallmark of Battlestar Galactica, have become the standard for later sci-fi series. Moreover, the 2004 reboot set the foundation for reviving old franchises, paving the way for countless reboots in the following decades. Battlestar Galactica wasn't just a show, it was a milestone, a turning point in television history, and an endless source of inspiration for filmmakers, writers, and sci-fi enthusiasts. Thank you for watching. Battlestar Galactica 1978 wasn't just a series, but a sci-fi legend with unique behind-the-scenes stories and a timeless impact. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to discover more fascinating secrets. See you in the next video.